Hey guys, welcome back to Andy's Dinosaur Reviews, and today we have another of these absolutely awesome Era Terra models. This time we've got ourselves the Iguanodon, and it's really cool. We're kind of going back and forth here because we had a herbivore, then we had a carnivore, and now we've got ourselves another herbivore. And it also just kind of shows you the variety of dinosaurs that Era Terra has to offer, which is also really fun. But you can see the Iguanodon looks exceptional, really cool looking sculpt. Very much so reminds me of the Collect Day version that Collect Day had released, because it's kind of in like that same, of course, sort of walking pose. Also has the beefiness that the Collect Day version sort of has. So if you do have that version of the Iguanodon, you'll kind of have an Iguanodon that could go with it that would definitely look like an excellent partner piece to that model. But overall, of course, this has the fantastic sculpting skill that Era Terra is known for to include in their models, and it also has that really nice base like we always have. So, as always, I'm really psyched to take a closer look at this, so let's jump to it and do just that. So, starting up here at the head sculpt of our Iguanodon, the one thing that you'll probably pick out straight away, besides the really cool coloration and paintwork, is how good this skin texture looks. Look at how nice that scale detail looks through the course of the face, and he's done a great job of bringing all of that detail out in a really nice natural way. As you can obviously see, we've got some very cool bluish tones here for the face of the Iguanodon. We also have a black that kind of stripes over the top of the head, runs down around the eye socket, and stripes down here into the side of the face of the dinosaur. You can also see we've got a very nicely sculpted beak, also painted with a black, sports some very impressive fine detail. I don't know how good my camera is going to focus on it, but you can see that the actual texturing to the beak also looks really good. The inside of the mouth sports kind of a darker, sort of a pinkish tone, or I shouldn't even say darker, kind of like a dark but bright pinkish tone, if that makes any sense. And if my camera would allow me to show that to you, you can see the tongue sculpted out in there. There's a very nice gloss coat I can see shining on the inside of the mouth as well. It's just a really small mouth. You can't see it fits there within my fingertip, so it's a little hard to get in there. We can also see the nostrils are sculpted out and painted with a darker tone, and also given a gloss coat, which is something that I really enjoy seeing on dinosaur models. It's a nice element of realism that, is added. And you can also see that we've got a blue eye, and I like that because even though it's not a coloration that would stand out drastically in comparison to the rest of the face, it does at the same time, because you have that dark tone that kind of runs down there around it, so that blue eye pops pretty nicely in there, and also, of course, sports a nice gloss coat, giving it that realistic eye shine. As you move back here into the back of the head, you can see the ears sculpted out, also again highlighted just like we saw with the nostrils, and you can see that this darker tone picks up and begins to stripe down. Actually, I guess begins right there in the eye, but continues to stripe down here as you move down through the course of the neck. You have some small ridges that follow along the spinal column. They kind of actually change a little bit as far as the appearance goes. You can see they're very small up there in the back of the neck, but once you reach down into the body, they kind of become a little bit more jagged, a little bit larger. You can also see that the coloration here of the face with that blue, actually there's a few variations. I can see a darker blue here, a little bit of a lighter blue down here. Same deal for the underside. You can see a really bright tone for the underside, kind of meshing with that bluish coloration. But you can see it begins to transition away as we lead down. The striping does continue though, and then we change to kind of like a very interesting, almost like a dark, very, very dark purplish, sort of a brown kind of a tone. Very interesting choice of color, but works really nicely and definitely plays off of that bluish tone quite beautifully, giving that face a standout area for sure, and then darker tones for the rest of the body. But as you move down here, you can see some nice variation to the scale detail. You can see kind of larger scales up there, finer scales as you move down further into the body, and you can also see a whole lot of skin wrinkling going on right there back behind the front leg there as the dinosaur is walking along. You can see all sorts of creasing and wrinkling right there. You can also make out the shoulder blade a little bit. As as you lead down, the muscle definition is present in the sculpt. Also looks really good. We also have that patterning moving down through the course of that front leg, and then you lead down into the foot, and it looks absolutely excellent. Of course, including those trademark Iguanodon thumb claws right there, and you can see that the toes look really nice as you lead along. Once you lead back up into the stomach region, you can see a nice smooth transition to that brighter tone of the underbelly of the Iguanodon. Also, again, extraordinarily vibrant scale detail moving through. We also have some nice girth to the stomach region of the dinosaur, especially you can see from up above. And that's one thing I really like about these models. You never see like starving dinosaurs or anything from Era Terra. They always give you really healthy interpretations of these dinosaurs. But as you lead up, again, a little bit higher, you can see again how the spinal column continues to run along the back with those ridges kind of leading off of it, and you can really see how the scale detail pops beautifully moving along the back of the dinosaur. We also keep up with this patterning kind of moving down. It's like a striping effect, but then as it leads down, it's sort of like breaks off and kind of heads out in all sorts of different directions, and that continues to run through the course of the body until you reach into the thigh. You can see it does that here, but after the thigh, it seems like we kind of return back to that striping. But we've got a very nice big thigh again for the dinosaur, big thick thigh. You can see the hip bone up here, some skin wrinkles as you lead down. We again have that patterning moving down here, some more skin wrinkles as you lead down toward the knee, the kneecap itself right there, big bulging calf muscle, continuing to have that patterning. And then as you lead down into the rear foot sculpt, that as well looks really, really nice. You've got some very nicely sculpted nails having kind of that genuine sharp look to them and painted with a nice glossy black. As we move back up, you can see all sorts of skin detail back behind the thigh because the leg is taking a nice step forward, kind of bunching the skin up in the stomach, but also stretching the skin off of the tail right there, and that also looks really nice. As we continue to lead along, you can see that striping effect out here in the tail, and you can see obviously the tail decreasing in size as we head out toward the tip. You can also see the coloration transition and the lighten up to a really nice, very light sort of a purplish tone out here on the tip of the tail, and you can see how the striping kind of gets a little bit closer together. Of course, it's almost like a trademark of Era Terra to give their dinosaurs really cool patterns, and you see that yet again with this Iguanodon. As you can see from the underside, the striping actually runs all the way through the underside of the dinosaur, down into that lighter tone. You can see the cloaca present again for the Iguanodon, and as you move here through the underside, we have some nice big girth in the stomach region, really vibrant scale detail, but also really nice kind of like skin wrinkles and folds and stuff here on the underside, continuing to show that, again, the sculpting skill of Era Terra is phenomenal. And then if you take a look at the opposing side, the dinosaur does have its head turned away from us, but ever so slightly. It's not a massive turn. The head sculpt looks great, just like it did on the initial side, but you're not going to see a whole lot of difference over here compared to what we saw on the first side. As you lead back, though, you can see again the scale detail just looks so nice. Very reptilian style scale detail moving down through the course of the neck, and again really smooth transition from the blue down into those dark sort of purplish brown kind of tones that we have here. We still have that very cool patterning moving down. You can see all kinds of skin wrinkles and skin folds leading all the way from the neck into the shoulder, into the stomach region right there. Again, kind of showing off the movement of the dinosaur. The leg sculpt looks really good. You can obviously see the dinosaur's taking a step as this leg is, taking a step forward and planting down into the ground. The foot sculpt again looks really, really nice. And of course we have again those trademark Iguanodon thumb claws there. Leading back into the stomach, we can definitely see a little bit more of the stomach on this side because the leg is trailing, so it kind of opens up the stomach a little more to get a better idea of what the skin texture looks like, as well as the coloration. You can see a nice lighter tone as you get further back here into the stomach, closer to the thigh. It lightens up a little bit. All sorts of skin stretching and stuff again off of the thigh with that leg trailing so far. We continue to again have that striping effect moving through the entire body. As you lead back, the rear leg also looks quite nice on this side. Again, really outstretched, obviously showing that walking motion very nicely for the Iguanodon. You can even see how the toes are picking up off of the ground for this leg to then take a step. And then you lead out again into the tail. The tail does have a little bit of a curve to it, but it by no means is a drastic kind of a major turn, just a nice little curve in the tail. So Absolutely one of the nicest Iguanodon models I have ever seen. And then we've of course got the base, and the base looks absolutely phenomenal, like every base does when it comes to an Era Terra release. I'm honestly so impressed with how good their bases look. Like, I've had so many models in my years of collecting prehistoric figures and models and stuff, and I would honestly say that the Era Terra bases are easily some of my favorite and some of the most impressive that I've ever seen from anyone. The sculpting of the actual texturing just looks so realistic and lifelike, and the paintwork is perfectly applied, giving it just the most realistic appearance. It genuinely looks like a piece of the earth taken from, 65 million years ago or beyond and brought here before me. And this, again, just looks absolutely excellent. There's just so much variation to even the texturing. You can see all kinds of like cracks and crevices in the dried kind of crusty looking ground. Obviously, we've got the footprints here of our Iguanodon walking along. We also have a nice dark wash that ties everything together. Again, the rocks and stuff showing up here and there, the vegetation as you move throughout, which is always nice to see. I always love when anybody includes vegetation on their models. Definitely a really beautiful base, again with the nameplate here on the side telling us exactly what species we are looking at, which is always fun to have. Again, when displaying your dinosaurs, it basically tells whoever comes into your room what you are looking at, and also adds almost like a museum-like display for the model. And then again, a nice soft underside there for the model to sit on whatever table or shelf you display it on. Really beautiful base for sure. Now, similar to the Patagotitan, but unlike the Tyrannotitan, when it comes to applying this dinosaur to the base, there are no pegs. You basically just have to find the footprints and then kind of put the dinosaur down. Just make sure to press it down into the footprints, and it stands beautifully on the base. Definitely nice and stable. You can see me shaking it there. There's no wobbling or anything. So the way that he applies his dinosaurs to the bases is really nice. Again, I had also shown off the card here at the beginning, which is always fun to be able to have to display next to the dinosaur. And this also shows you, again, some information about both the species and the figure itself. States that, again, it's 1/35th scale and has the Era Terra logo right there to show you exactly who has created this amazing work of art. As far as a size goes for our Iguanodon, lengthwise you were looking at about 11¼ inches, or right around 28½ centimeters, and then for a height, about 3¾ inches, or a little over 9½ centimeters, but not quite at 10. For a size comparison, there is Mr. Papo T-Rex, the Attack Pack Colovosaurus, Robert Muldoon, and the Collect Day Human Being next to our Era Terra Iguanodon. And you can see, again, it sports pretty much the size you would expect it to for a 1/35th scale Iguanodon. If you are familiar with the species, which is one of the oldest known dinosaurs, we should be pretty familiar with the species if you are a collector. So, again, sitting very much so in the size range you would expect, also tells you that it is a very nicely sized model. Then some more randoms with maybe a little bit too many in here right now. We have the Schleichdiabloceratops, Safari Ltd Utyrannus, and Collect Day Deluxe Dimetrodon here next to the Iguanodon. If we actually take the Utyrannus out, just to kind of give you a nice visual of these other dinosaurs there with it, you can see again how they size up next to the Iguanodon. And then if we kind of take these guys out of here, push the Iguanodon over a little bit, and then put the Utyrannus in, you can now see again what it is like size-wise next to that Utyrannus. But for another comparison, then here we have a comparison with the Iguanodon I was speaking of earlier, which would be the Collect Day version next to the Era Terra version. Almost similar as far as the stance goes when it comes to the both of them kind of walking along, which is pretty cool. But I will say the Era Terra version is definitely a bit nicer than the Collect Day version. The Collect Day version is great. I love that figure, but I absolutely prefer the Era Terra version. Then when it comes to vintage Iguanodon, we have the old Safari Ltd version next to our Era Terra, which you can very clearly see. The size is definitely in the favor of the Era Terra release, as well as the Papo Iguanodon, which you can also see, isn't quite as large as the Era Terra version. Kind of similar in size, but the length is definitely on the side of the Era Terra release. And then one final comparison, and just because it's fun, we have the Era Terra Tyrannotitan next to the Era Terra Iguanodon, just to give you one comparison in case you happen to have the Tyrannotitan in your collection and maybe you're considering picking up the Iguanodon. This should give you a pretty good idea of how they size up next to each other. So this Iguanodon from Era Terra Resin Fauna is definitely a beautiful, beautiful model. It really captures the overall beauty of the Iguanodon itself. And again, being one of the oldest known dinosaurs, it is I would say, iconic release, an iconic species to release, and they've done such a great job of giving us one of the most highly detailed and also, I would say, most updated and accurate interpretations of an Iguanodon. The sculpt looks great, very nice, very crisp skin texture throughout, and you have all the skin wrinkles and skin stretching and everything that you would want to see and expect to see considering the positioning of the dinosaur. Very nice, elegant look to it, just kind of walking along. You have the mouth open as it's letting out some sort of a vocalization. I would say it's definitely a vocalization. Doesn't look like it's coming in for a bite to eat or anything. Looks like it's just got something to say. But we also have some nice paint apps for it as well. Again, he's chosen a pretty cool color scheme. Out of all of the dinosaurs that I have acquired from Era Terra so far, it's probably the least flashy, but at the same time, it absolutely is a very nice naturalistic coloration for the dinosaur. And of course, we have those gorgeous blues up there in the face, which absolutely pop and really make that face shine. But then you have some nice darker tones for the majority of the body. Yet we still have that very cool, almost classic patterning moving through. Again, something that Era Terra is very good at is coming up with a patterning to apply to their figures, and we again have a nice one on this Iguanodon. On top of that, we have a fantastic base, as you always have for any Era Terra release. Lots of really nice vegetation applied, incredible paintwork on the base as well, giving the bases consistently some of the most lifelike visuals for any base associated with a dinosaur model that I've ever seen. And you also have the nameplate there just to shine what dinosaur it is and to, again, add even more to this release, giving it that absolute museum-like display. So if you are interested in picking one of these up for yourself, I will include a link in the description to Era Terra on Instagram, as well as their email address. So if you are interested in acquiring one of the models you've seen from them so far, make sure you check that link. Absolutely check either, again, on their Instagram account, message them there, or send an email on over and order yourself some of these fantastic dinosaur models. And also like, comment, and subscribe, and I will see you in the next review. Thanks for watching.